This is the Henry's Child Podcast. Am I crazy? Or am I just raving?
With the advent of the Headlights live video, or the quarantine or locked down live video, getting such a great response on Facebook, I thought that I would re-release the podcast that we did for Headlights. And it originally was a conversation, actually the third podcast that we had done before I released it. In fact, it was funny when I just listened to it a few minutes ago, seeing if it sort of fit, the model, especially after doing a listen closely. And it really does. I mean, it holds up really well, but I thought what was really funny is we hadn't even landed on a title. And here we are literally 59 more podcasts later, and we're still talking about the past. In fact, it was funny. It was actually we called it just the Henry's Child Podcast. So we had yet to actually name it, Am I Crazy or Am I Just Raving? And that's Andrew's suggestion early on. So, it's funny. It actually allowed me to take a few minutes just to revisit the original sort of intention that we had in creating a podcast. And the original idea was to really be supporting the listenership for what eventually became the first record of new material called I Have Become. And, to real fans, they'll know what the name of the second record was, because we started off with enough material. And it's funny how things just, you can tell when they stick and you can tell when they sort of fade away. And that's kind of what we're going through right now is in this incarnation, which again has, contextually, I need to make sure that you understand that we've been around longer since we've gotten back together than we were the first entire cycle that we're still talking about. So it is fascinating to live inside of that context, inside of that realm, and still have it be relevant. That's really the reach. So I thought with, getting more views and being where we're at, I thought it very fitting to go ahead and revisit this podcast. I think it's going to have relevance to new fans that have heard it off of Listen Closely, and, old school fans as well that know this from the Mumbles and Screams record. And in typical early fashion, we share stories and talk about old school shows and things like that. Andrew talks specifically about the way we used to write songs, which was funny to hear because Rich and I do it a little bit differently these days, especially in our other band, 7 Second Circle. So it's very interesting to hear the suggestions that Andy offers in this episode, which is 2 years old by now. I think actually closer to 3 years old. It was back in January though. And Andrew talks a little bit about his mental health diagnosis and how that affected writing lyrics. And what I realized too in listening to that podcast was that they were a lot more planned back then. And when I see a gap, like I see an entrepreneurial sort of, thing to take on, like a lack, I always do 10 things before I release them. So if by the 10th time something like a podcast or a video or a YouTube channel seems like it's going to be relevant, I'll go ahead and pursue it. So it's really not an excuse for what you're about ready to hear, but it's funny to sort of think about it in that context where I had 10 originally planned in my head, and leverage things like Facebook and talk to old fans that we're still very, very close to see what they wanted to hear. So I also almost put in the Listen Closely version of Headlights because we actually play a bunch of music in between that we sort of talk about, and then it sort of comes back to it. And then I thought, I just want to stay true to the original creation that we had. So here is a re-release with a few extra minutes of extra added stuff that I threw in of episode number 3 of the Am I Crazy or Am I Raving podcast, which is Deconstructing Headlights.
You really could just name most of these podcasts. Am I crazy or am I just raving? It's actually a good title for
It's
a
a
podcast.
question that
if you
I've
think
asked
about
myself several times.
I mean, really, that's just a good title for a podcast. I might click on that. Am I crazy or am I just raving?
Welcome to episode 3 of the Henry's Child podcast.
Number 3.
Today we are going to rave about the song Headlights. In our last episode, we discussed at length the song I Will. And from that same album comes Headlights, which was another much requested song that we sort of deconstruct and take a look at. And Headlights, at least how it was framed for us for many years, was the pumping, pumping, pumping song. And the name Headlights isn't even referred to in the lyrics of the song. So, Andrew, why is this song named Headlights?
We'll start there. Okay. Wow. I don't know. I had something around back then wanting to name songs that wasn't in the title, or the title wasn't in the song. Let me say it the right way.
Okay.
It didn't really work very often. I mean, this song could easily be pumping, pumping. It could be adrenaline. It could be it's in my head if you know the song. But there's
Victim's
a lyric.
Dance.
There's a great lyric from the song Rusty Cage. It's by Soundgarden, but it's the cover by Johnny Cash that really landed the lyric for me. Like God's eyes in my headlights.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That image really struck me. I don't know why. That image really struck me. And somehow it's, I talk about a spotlight being shined on yourself to discover yourself. Imagine God's eyes staring at you. What would you discover? What could you discover? So this song is a lot around a light on, I don't know, my own issues with myself. And issues a lot of people have with me.
That too, huh?
Of course. So anyway, that's where it comes from. And I thought it really applied with the subject matter.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a lot less deeper than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, sorry. Sometimes it's just shallow. You hear a cool lyric, you want to use it.
Creativity comes from anywhere, doesn't it?
Indeed.
We only have 12 notes. We got to share them, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So one of the memories that I have from the song Headlights comes from obviously when we used to play it live. And there's a move that you do where you sort of get on your knees, and during the pumping section.
I'm not actually on my knees. I'm crouched. It's on my feet.
Yeah, okay. Crouching tiger, whatever.
Whatever.
So anyway, you do this move, the same move. And there were several times where you would sort of bounce across the stage and turn Rich's distortion off because you hit the end of his pedals.
Oh, yeah. I've unplugged him. I've slammed into him. I've slammed into you. I knocked you down fully on stage and unplugged. You kept playing. I remember. That was what a pity, wasn't it?
It
I knocked you down?
Is that the same one where you nailed your tooth?
That's probably the same show.
Maybe the same show.
Same show.
Yeah.
Yeah, this song's famous for that, I guess, or very famous in a very small circle.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And if somebody's listening to this podcast, they're probably part of that circle as well.
Yeah, that's probably true. Everyone knows that pumping move. It just emphasizes what's going on in the song. I mean, it's an intense tune. I mean, Rich started that riff, that stomp, deliberately wanting to write the heaviest, stompinest riff that he could come up with that lent itself to some melody. He started playing that with the stops, and I was immediately enrolled. Like, let's go.
Yeah, see, I wasn't around for the writing of that song.
Yeah, that's true. That was Chris.
So I don't really know that story, but it makes sense based off the music we write with Rich now.
Right. I mean, that's how we normally write songs. Rich will have a riff. Usually he'll have 2 or 3 or 4, sometimes even 5. Sometimes he emails them to me these days, and I'll listen to them, and I'll listen to one, and I don't really hear anything. It's cool, but nothing connects with me. Listen to another one, nothing connects. Rolls around on the third one, bam. That's it.
And you just know it.
Absolutely. It's immediate. There is a melody that hits. Oftentimes there's a very good lyric that hits, and it hits very rapidly. A connection. There's a connection with that music. Whatever he's trying to create mood-wise, whatever he's trying to create in a feel, lands immediately. And you've seen it. You've been in practice when it's happened. I know you've seen it, Tom.
Several times.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and it hits, when he plays something that hits me, almost always If it doesn't become a full song, we end up working on it for a couple of hours to see if we can develop it.
Sure.
And that's how this happened. So he had that riff, came to practice, and played it, and I immediately felt it.
Well, speaking of mood, what's interesting and occurs for me in the song Headlights is it's almost like has anxiety, or it's almost sort of passive aggressive, because it starts off with this kind of slow and loping bass line, a little bit of Andrew kind of in there, and then boom, sample.
Yeah.
And then boom, song in your face.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very moody.
It is. And anxiety is a good word for it. It's really about the expression of extraordinarily intense feelings I had back then around my own belief in my own sanity. That started earlier. I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Right? Spent a couple of years going from job to job to job to job, doing a bunch of drugs, drinking a lot, having a hard time. Nothing was connecting with me. Nothing. Getting diagnosed, getting labeled, getting the forehead stamp, kapunk,
Yikes.
Yeah, you're screwed up. And I was too young to understand what that meant, so I took it that an authority had stamped me with that label. Then I started reading about it and realized I didn't agree. I thought I didn't really feel like I had a borderline personality. I thought I was much closer to a narcissist.
So you were sort of already over the borderline.
Apparently, and into narcissism. And then I really started questioning whether or not I had a conscience. And that gets into psychopathy.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So
you just went from the color purple to like...
dark black.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you got dark instantly.
Indeed. And this was over a course of time. And the self-exploration of that and the struggle with that. I had the ability to treat my friends horribly. And most of my friends that have known me most of my life will agree with that. I had an extraordinary ability to be cruel to my friends and people around me with very little conscience, as long as I got my way. Now, an interesting difference in what really sent me down the rabbit hole back then was that narcissists are often unaware of their impact on other people, or that they're different. They're not aware of that. If you read the personality disorder, it's a very common thing. Sociopaths or psychopaths are aware that they're different. They just don't care. And they use that difference to their advantage. So what really messed me up was that I realized I was aware that I felt different, that I could choose these acts of cruelty and do them. So I really had a moment where I was wondering if I was a psychopath. Might seem ridiculous on the outside looking in, but that was a true struggle I had for a few years. And this song is kind of an expression of that. Am I crazy or am I just raving? All of us have dark thoughts. We may even indulge those by watching dark movies, or write dark lyrics, or scream at a wall, whatever it takes to express those dark feelings. But they don't rule us. We don't hurt other people.
Right.
So that's raving. I'm raving about it. Whatever shitty thing happened in your life, I rave about it. We all do. Being crazy is living that.
So am I crazy or am I raving is an actual question.
Absolutely. A question I asked myself. And really, you can hear that in the riff. I really think you can. That stomp, that anxiety. I mean, you talked about it immediately out of the gate. I mean, it's intense.
It's throbbing.
Yeah, throbbing. Yeah. Okay, good word. I like that. Let's play that. Let's play it. I know you've got it queued up right now. So from the very beginning, when it comes in heavy, let's go all the way through the first chorus, the in my head. Okay?
Yeah, you got it.
I can feel adrenaline. Popping me into a ballistic frenzy that commands a tighter truth. Abuse my power over another to gain a clearer view. Victims dancing, I chase them once and really
So it's in my head, which you say as almost foreshadowing. Well, I know the song really well. So at the end of the second verse going into the outro, there's a lot more mention of it's in my head. But this seems like it's, now that I understand the context, this seems like it's much more of a relevant question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the blessing and the curse of it. You get labeled something, realizing you're getting labeled something, personality disorder, bipolar, depressive, any of those labels that you get hit with from an authority figure, no less, that you then get to own for the rest of your life, only has meaning if you put meaning on it.
Right. So the meaning we make on things.
Absolutely true. At the same time, so I'm placing the meaning on this stuff. I'm letting it drive me down the rabbit hole into doubting my own sanity, or if I, belong walking around, if I'm that messed up. At the same time, realizing I'm placing that meaning on that, it's still in there. These feelings and thoughts came from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So it's in my head. It's all in my head. And yeah, it's kind of, like I said, the double meaning of that, the blessing and the curse.
So with this in mind, it sort of crescendos in the midsection, which really is just a more up-tempo and upbeat notes and
Of the intro.
and feeling of the intro.
Absolutely.
But done with almost like, I want to say heavier, but it's actually more jazzy the way Jeff made it sound.
Yeah,
And
there's Jeff and those drums again, right?
Just like in I Will, the drums have a tendency to set everything up.
Yeah, tendency indeed. I mean, it's the flavor of that whole midsection. Again, that midsection, it starts with the "So I fly away," right? And that's getting away from those thoughts, getting out of your head. And that's the instrumental. But it comes back to the question, am I crazy or am I just raving? And this time I'm screaming it at the top of my lungs.
And the song hits a really big peak during that. So we take it from something at a very low slope all the way up to the top, where you then ask the question again, am I crazy or am I raving?
Right.
And you scream it from the top of your lungs.
Indeed. So let's give that a listen. I know it's queued up again. I love that whole middle section. Rich's kind of soaring octave solo that he's got going through there. We call them melodic interludes because Rich never really soloed, but this is a beautiful example of Rich in his melodic interlude. I love listening to that slide on that guitar back and forth with those chords, and then how it all lands when Jeff starts hammering that snare at the end of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, fantastic. Here we go.
So I fly away.
Wow. That rich interlude is amazing.
Agreed. That's what I loved about him. It's a solo without being a solo.
Not only that, but it's like singing without being a solo.
Great melody. It's great melody, and I love the way he builds the whole thing, and the melody goes back and forth, and he goes up, 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 and it launches into that final riff where Jeff starts hammering that snare, and the vocal comes in. The whole thing is a progression, and he leads the way on that. It's great. Really, really like that.
Really awesome.
I've always loved that.
Yeah, me too. Well, I certainly understand the song a lot more now.
Yeah, but
And I also understand where the samples come
right,
from.
right. Now they're really on the nose, right?
Absolutely.
So people have always asked where that came from. And it was a cute coincidence that it came from Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, right? Henry's Child. But really, it's an on-the-nose example. I mean, when you're questioning your own conscience and psychopathy, and that movie's about a total psychopath. So, yeah, seems a bit obvious in retrospect, but I was really unafraid of being obvious back in the day.
Well, back in the day, podcasts didn't exist where you
that's
could
true.
actually ask questions like this.
Yeah, indeed.
One of my absolute favorite lyrics in this song is using words as their chosen weapons. People aim their voice at me.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It is a really good one.
Yeah, that's being labeled. You know, someone rubber stamps your head with your ADHD, your bipolar, whatever it may be. People use words as weapons in such a multitude of ways. You can use "I hate you." That can be a weapon. You can be passive aggressive about it. You can make someone feel less than, feel like, because they allow you to, of course. Right? I understand that. At the same time, at that age, someone's going to label you, and your miscreant behavior becomes the way that you are no matter what, because you are this way. It's hard and it's intense.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
I think people live with that every day. Again, you're depressed. You're depressed. Am I depressed? He said I'm depressed. I must be depressed.
Which is a weird closed feedback loop, because then you feel like you have no choice but to live into that next moment, because
Right.
you're told, and I think that the younger you are, the more impressionable you
Of course.
are, and the more
Absolutely.
you again, not to bring another song back to opinion, but it all comes back based on your youth. Based on your youth, the closed feedback loop never gets closed. It's almost like a cycle that never completes.
Absolutely. Anyway, so that lyric is exactly that. Your words become weapons when you start labeling people. It's convenient for those around that person, and it's a convenient way for that person to label their own behavior. So a lot of people embrace it, and they find identity in it, and that's when it really gets dangerous. When you identify as a depressed person,
Right.
when you identify as someone with bipolar disorder, then you are living it. Yeah, dangerous, very dangerous.
So as heavy as the song is, with the guitars and the bass and the drums, and as heavy of a subject matter as you've chosen to write about, it's also kind of a humorous song too. You do that goofy voice, right? And you do
feel.
You can feel, and then the pumping across the stage, and the samples, and everybody sings along.
Indeed. We get people that will do the samples from the audience when we don't have the sample ready from the stage. The crowd will actually, they'll actually
I
yell
remember
out the
that.
sample more than once, right? I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, I'm not sure where the humor of this came from. I don't know. I really don't know. It seems like it should be nothing but serious. But that original, I can feel adrenaline pumping. First time it came out with some humor. And somehow that felt right in the song. I can't really explain it to this day. I can't get myself, kind of like a little bit of I Will I talked about. I can't get myself back there to tell you exactly why that came out as humorous, and we all felt that was right for the song. And not just us, but the audience, obviously, thought that was right for the song.
Totally.
They love it too. So guess what? It's right for the song.
It is.
In retrospect, talking about it, I couldn't tell you why. That's a mystery, truly. To me too. And I think we should end on a mystery, Tom. Headlights. Can't demystify the entire song. That's no fun. Demystify the title, told you what it was about, but cannot tell you where the humor
I already
came
feel
from.
like I've cheated. Look at all this information I have out of you about Headlights.
Oh, it's funny. I've told this story to a couple of fans back in the day. I had a couple of people sit me down before a show and really like ask some serious probing questions.
Wow.
I know. It's
I've
takes
played this
an
song
unusual.
for 23 years, and I still don't know the meaning behind stuff. I learned something new today.
How about that?
It's great to relive this stuff, and it's great to take into deep consideration what occurred in the past, and be able to just sit with it, be able to just be with it, and look at our creation and see what was birthed from it. And then, like Kale, we destroy that creation and then we create something else. So, like I said earlier, I almost thought about putting in the new version of Headlights from the Listen Closely record into this podcast, but then I kind of, decided not to do it. So I hope that you're doing well amid this pandemic. I have yet to hear about any shows coming up. We still have not done our CD release shows for Listen Closely, so those are still planning on coming up. Hopefully I can convince Daniel Riddle and King Black Acid to come play with us down in Eugene. They were very excited about that. So I don't know, guys, just hang in there. I hope everything's going well. If you guys ever need to talk, reach out to us. We're happy to have just a handful of people come up to rehearsal and hang out if you're interested in doing something like that. And we appreciate all feedback that we get either from here or on Facebook or, writing us directly at henryschild@henryschild.com. And we just appreciate you. I just sit in love and appreciation of all that you've done with us and for us, and just look forward to the future. We will eventually be working on another new record and, getting that Listen Closely CD release shows handled. It'll be very exciting. Listen, if you're not on our newsletter list, you should really consider leaving your first name and email address at our site, henryschild.com, and look in the middle section for a section just to leave your first name and email address. And do that, and you'll actually be part of the tribe. You'll originally be sent I think it's a 3-minute delay from the time that my database gets the mail to getting a new version of Human Being into your inbox. And then the best part is you're actually on our newsletter list. And so we let you know kind of what's happening. And, I work with email newsletters. So I want you to rest assured that I will never sell your information or advertise to you in anything that you don't care about. I mean, obviously we'll let you know about new records and things like that, but it's your choice to purchase them or not. So that's one way that you can really help us out. You can also help us out by subscribing to this podcast. And the reason that I sort of ask everybody to subscribe at the end of every episode is, number one, it really helps us with the algorithms. It actually keeps us sort of alive in being able to search for things so that we can get new fans. And number two, it gives us that sort of a longevity that occurs that much like your credit score, places like Google and Bing and those places that search how people sort of randomly find us, and even Bandcamp and Spotify see the amount of traffic that we get in the number of subscribers. So it does end up benefiting us, and it's something free that you can do that would be really, really helpful. So I hope you like this. I mean, let me know if you're interested in sort of reposting other podcasts that we've done. Super open to it. I also am really open to creating new content with new folks around town. So again, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.
It came out my mouth.